So welcome everyone to today's Zugler personal finance session. We're talking about money, so I have to do this reminder before we get into it, which is that this conversation is not a substitute for actual financial advice, but it's experienced folks from our community, friends that we trust, to share their experience about what's working for them, what they're learning as they're taking their own personal finance journeys. And Ali is a really awesome special guest that we have who actually started a company around this. So he's got a lot of credentials here. So before we get into introducing Ali, I just want to quickly introduce myself. I am Stefanie. I am an impact-driven operations and communications leader with lots of experience scaling teams and operations at early Google and the New York Times. And I have been working with the Zugler community now for 9 years, just building community in New York City specifically and the Women's Network. So I have been really just enjoying digging in and building friendships and relationships through this group. And one of my personal goals is to help our community shift the relationship with money so that we can actually achieve more financial independence, confidence, and just grow our wealth overall. This talk is one of the talks in that series, and it's really intended to help you invest in your future, but also your family's future. So this talk is for you. I really want you to ask questions, like think about, what do I want to know? What do I need to know on this topic, right? Around generational wealth and creating generational wealth for my family, right? That I want to ask someone like Ali about. So who is Ali? I'm really excited to introduce him. He is the co-founder and CIO at Mora. It's a platform that helps parents set up custodial Roth IRAs for their children. Now, how do they do that? Well, there's a lot of steps in this process. And so basically Mora streamlines all of that overhead to make it easy and accessible and an easy way for you to invest in your kids' retirement very early on. And his background, he's a lifelong entrepreneur. He's a 3-time founder. He's an investor, and he's the former CEO of Stream Labs, which is basically like a Hootsuite for live stream. And he led their acquisition by Logitech in 2019. So he's got a ton of experience building companies and turned to Mora as his next venture. So, after and prior to all of this, he was a GM at Logitech as well. So he's got an incredible experience on these topics and just an incredible experience as an entrepreneur and a business person. And I'm super excited to talk to him today. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stefanie. Excited to be here.
You're welcome. And before we do Q&A with Ali, I think that everybody in the room is probably coming in with different levels of knowledge around this topic. So I want to cover some of the basics, and I'm going to have Ali introduce them to you so that we get on as level of a playing field or understanding as we can before we dive into this topic of custodial Roth IRAs. But again, this conversation is for you. If we are not answering your questions, if you don't feel like you're getting what you need out of this conversation, then by all means, stop us, ask your questions. Nothing is too small and nothing is too big. So, if this isn't valuable for you, then we shouldn't be doing it, right? So please do, I obviously have some prepared questions, but please do use the chat to ask questions. And when I see them come through, I'll probably ask you to unmute and ask them live, just because we like the back and forth. People don't want to just hear my voice. So, okay. So with that, I want to hand it off to Ali to introduce us to this topic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Stefanie. You are too kind and very, very generous with your introductions. I'm a big fan of the Zugler community. I didn't work at Google, but the I've co-invested with the Zoogler Fund in some startup deals, and then we are also actually a Zoogler startup. So Zoogler has a fund that they put an angel check into our into Mora, and we've co-hosted a bunch of events over the past few years, including some demo days for Zoogler alumni who are looking to raise capital, start their own companies. So love the community and Chris and Kushagra, and I think you guys have built something really, really special. The free food at Google is always great. So I'm always looking for more friends at Google.
This is what we miss. We miss the free food.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. Cool. Just really quickly, let me share my screen here. Some definitions. These are my kids. Oh, wrong share button. That share button. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. These are my two kids, 6 and 4, Hassan and Iman, at a fair. They wanted a picture with firefighters. This is what they really look like. These are their avatars. My son is really a Lego Ninjago ninja, and my daughter is anything Disney princess. And I don't know how they gravitated towards these, but that's who they really feel that they are. If you ask them who are you, that's who they are. Some really quick definitions we're going to cover. Some of these things you probably know about, and this is a pretty sophisticated audience, so please, apologies if this is just rehashing stuff you already know. But just really quickly, since we may have folks who are new to this, so we'll just cover some terms, definitions. What are they? How do they work? 401k, I guess most people here are already familiar with. It's an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Pre-tax dollars, you get a tax deduction. Employer matching is probably the most interesting part about this. Why most people like putting in money, and it has high limits compared to other forms of retirement plans, right? 23,500 for an individual, combined 70k with your employer. Revocable trusts are they're also called living trusts that you set up while you're alive for your family. The main reason to do it is to skip probate court. What is probate court? It's something annoying that your descendants have to deal with if you pass away, right? So all your assets get stuck, even if you have a will. They still get stuck in court from anywhere from 12 to 24 months, could go longer. And so your descendants don't have access to money or funds or like all sorts of legal bills and headaches that you have to deal with, they have to deal with. And so a revocable trust simplifies that transfer, bypasses the court process because you already lay out what's going to happen. And you appoint a trustee with usually like a trust company or a bank to simplify the transfer process. There's also a tertiary sort of secondary tax benefit here, where there are no capital gains tax on assets in these things when they transfer. We could talk about that as well. It's applicable to some people. So you can avoid capital gains where assets get stepped up on transfer, their cost basis. Irrevocable trusts are a little more costly and more work to set up. As the name says, they're irrevocable. So once it's set up, it can't be changed. Used typically to optimize state gifting lifetime limits, which are about 28 million per married couple this year. That's going to drop to 14 million next year. So if you think that between you and your partner, either individually 7 million or 14 million as a married couple, you're going to leave more than that to your benefit, to your kids in total. That is going to get taxed at 40% state tax, right? So this is one tool people use to optimize that limit and effectively double, triple, quadruple that limit. And we can talk about it as well. But at high level, it can also be used to remove state taxes if you live in a high tax state like California or New York, by putting some of your assets outside the state into an irrevocable trust. It can also be used to stack QSBS, which is the best tax benefit, if you're working at an early stage startup or you're a startup founder. More definitions: Roth IRA for kids. are just like Roth IRAs for adults, exactly the same. You need the after-tax dollars go in, withdrawals and growth are completely tax-free, free of capital gains, income, and state taxes. You do need earned income, just like Roth IRA for adults. So the way you typically do it is you hire your kids either in the household or your business. And this is the most powerful tool for generational wealth building because the compounding window sort of runway is so long and it's tax free. Those two things combined just get you the greatest bang for your buck. So typically it's number one in priority. And then there's the college 529 plan you use to pay for college. Withdrawals for college are tax free. There's a super funding option we can talk about, and Akma brokerage, which is just like a regular brokerage account for kids. Let me stop there. It's just high level definitions.
Yeah, questions from the group on just the basic definitions here to start. Did anybody know all of them and knew that all of them were available as tools? We have a video off group. It's hard to know.
Yeah, these are just some of the basic sort of building blocks. There's maybe like 20 more, but that just gets into more advanced stuff. But this is just really high level estate planning and financial building blocks for families.
Yeah, we need to get someone in to talk about estate planning in a deeper session. It's a big topic too, because that's it's sort of, it feels like a black box and it's a little scary to talk about when you're still living, right? It's hard to talk about your death and planning for your death when you're alive.
Yeah, I'm very morbid.
Total, no. It's like, I'm very young. Like, why do I need to do this? It's like, well, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? And so you really never know. Okay.
I had a couple of just quick stories.
Yeah.
So I think last year, I thought I was having like heart palpitations and I ran to the ER. But before I did that, I was like, I gave my wife a spreadsheet. I'm like, I think everything's in here, but if something happens to me, here's everything.
Yeah.
And you'll have to figure it out. And the same thing happened. My brother was learning how to be a pilot recently, and so he's going up in the air. You never know, right? Like, so he sent me a spreadsheet. Like, if something happens to me, please go and share this with my partner, and like, please help manage this because she's not going to know where everything is. Yeah, so estate planning is a thing, and it really made me think about I've done some of it. I'm happy to talk about my journey there, but certainly not all of it.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but Nafisa makes sense. That sounds really tough. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah. Okay. All right, Allie, do you have more? You want to keep going?
Yeah, we could look at we can talk either about costs of raising a child, or we can jump into some calculators that are really fun.
Let's do the calculators. I feel like I loved the calculators. I was like, are you kidding me, man? This is crazy. Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me pull those up. Let me know if you can't see my screen. I'll zoom in a little bit, make the window a little bigger. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah. This is probably, by the way, I just vibe coded this with some AI coding tools. So if you are not a coder or a PM and you just want to make like MVP tools or basic prototypes, vibe coding is solid. It's real. You can even use it to build basic games, and it's getting better every month. This one is probably my favorite one. We'll go through a bunch of these calculators, but now versus later. And if there's one thing that I think families take away from this talk, is like start early. Start as early as you can. It almost, what type of account, what you do with it, what you invest, all of that are just sort of details. The most important thing is to start early. And as long as you start early, the gains are just going to be massive. And here, I have a 4-year-old, so let's do the math here for the 4-year-old. If I start now with just a Roth, you can use different instruments, but this is just the annual contribution of the Roth, grows at 9%, total money in till is 392, and what she will receive tax free at 60 is 10.4 million. Like, the math is insane. If I wait 5 years, that drops to 6 million. If I wait another 5 years, it drops to 4.3 million. For my 6-year-old, if I was to start this year, money in, 8.8, next year drops to 5, drops to 3. So by the time they're 15, a lot of the, or like 20, a lot of the long-term, super long-term benefits of compounding are gone, right? So this is sort of the number one takeaway, that I try to tell people is just start early. It almost doesn't matter. The details come later, right? Even if it's like a simple brokerage account in just your name, you're not doing anything fancy. Just start early and put away whatever you can afford to put away for your kids. Here's another way to look at it, right? So if you were to just take $10,000 today and just once, right? One time. And if you have a 6-year-old, I think a couple other people here, Ayush and others in the chat had 6-year-olds. You just take 10 grand, put it into a tax-free account, let it compound for 50 years. That's the number, right? So these compounding is logarithmic, right? It's not linear. And adding 10 or 20 years at the beginning to like a typical 30-year compound, for most people set up retirement accounts in when they're 25, 30, 35, it's too late, right? For your kids, you have the opportunity to do it when they're either newborns or 5 or 10, right? Sooner the better. This is the math on like a Roth specifically. You could play with these assumptions. I had a lot of fun coding this. What's really cool here is, say I take my 6-year-old, and then I stop contributing when they're 18. I don't want to put in any more money. After 18, they get their own job, or let's say 21, realistically. 21, and then they do the rest of the contributions, right? So only 112K goes in at 7K a year. That still turns into 7.2 million, right? Even if the child contributes no other money for the rest of their lives. As long as they don't liquidate the account and blow it on sports cars, Roth, I get this question a lot. Well, why specifically a tax-free account versus just a brokerage? It's simpler. I could just, there are no limits. There's flexibility. I can withdraw money. Yes, I think all those benefits are real. There's also some disadvantages. It's easier to blow the money in like a regular brokerage account because your child is going to take ownership at 21. And if they want to buy a sports car the next year for their next birthday, you can't stop them legally, right? So we are working on multi-sig accounts, to borrow a concept from crypto, where we're going to take some of these brokerage accounts and let parents exercise control over them for a number of years until the child is much older, like say in their 40s, just so that they don't blow the money on dumb stuff early. But this is the math. So the Roth compounds a little bit faster, and then at the end, assuming you take withdrawals at 59, you save a significant amount in taxes at the end, right? So these are your after-tax totals with these assumptions. You're roughly getting about 90% more money from a Roth by doing this, both through slightly faster compounding because dividends are taxed as regular income every year, right? So they're a drag on your compounding. If say you are to just do woo and chill, S&P 500. This is the college 529 calculator. So a lot of parents are like, how do I save for college? What does this do? So by 6, my older one is already too old. So for this one, you kind of want to start when they're newborns, as much as you can. And then, whatever the budget is, whatever you can spare, let's say it's 10K a year, just for sake of argument. You end up with money in, and then this is what you get tax-free for college. So roughly like a 3-to-1 if you start super early. There is a way to super fund this upfront, which gets you slightly better compounding, slightly better ratios. the IRS allows you to put up to 5 years of your annual gifting limit upfront into a college 529 plan. So if you can afford it, you could do that. But that assumes a few things: that you really feel college is going to be around when your kids grow up, and that the construct of college isn't going to be replaced by something else, and that you really want to put that much money in. But if you can afford it, it is an option. Just want to mention. This is probably my favorite calculator overall is allocation. So how do you allocate between different sort of account types depending on your goals? So we look at 3 different goals here. Maximize. So this is my goal personally: maximize dollars, minimize taxes to the kids. What should I do? Let's say my annual contribution budget. This is sort of your annual budget, right? Let's say my budget was 15K, but we can pick any number, just leave it at 15, and current age of child, net IRR assumptions. So you put 7. So the most optimal way to do this is to max the Roth, then max the 529, and then put whatever's left into the Atma brokerage account, the custodial minor brokerage account. If you keep doing that, this is what you end up with. You get 200K for college, tax-free. You get 9.6 million in your kid's retirement, tax-free, and then 1.9 million in a taxable account, right? That is also sort of available at any time. You can draw on, and that's the growth of these things over time. You keep funding the 529 until the child is 17 or 18, and then after that, you're funding the other account types. If the goal is to prioritize college expenses with the same annual budget, right? Let's say the budget is still the same. That's what you can afford to spend or put away for each of your kids. You get a little bit more for college, right? So instead of the 200K, you get 375 tax-free, and maybe that's more important because it's like a sooner expense. Once the child is 18, then you start funding the Roth and the Atma. You max out the Roth and then the Atma account, and this is what you end up with, right? So you get more money for college, but significantly less for the child's retirement, and roughly the same in the taxable account. If you want to prioritize flexibility, you sort of break down the money equally between all the account types, and this is what sort of you end up with, right? So depending on the goals, you can kind of play with the numbers.
That's wild. Harsh, you want to ask your question in real life?
Yeah, Ali. Yeah, again, all disclosures, I am a customer of Mora. I think this is a wonderful tool for kids. And I'm just starting. And I've seen this calculators at your website, which is phenomenal, better than any other calculators available on YouTube or anywhere else. With that said, I also want to understand, a little bit psychology of kids and parents as, we progress over the years. What does it really take to make this an actual reality? Because, numbers speak on paper, they are not translated into actual actions. So from your perspective, what you have seen talking to parents and kids also, as they grow, as they go to college, they have their own accounts at age of 18. What does it really take to make this a reality?
That's a great question. And I think it's a very important question because with a spreadsheet and reality, there's always a difference, and the difference comes down to sort of how you execute and how you implement that plan. If everything goes according to plan, amazing, right? But some of the risks that can deviate a family away from the plan. So this is what we hear. Children can, if they know that these accounts exist and they're not careful or responsible, they can spend the money early, and that destroys the value of compounding. That's probably the number one risk. Mm-hmm. The number two risk is you trade, Robin Hood style Wall Street bets, like you YOLO these accounts into like buying and selling stocks, trying to get rich quick.
Right.
And the other stuff is more logistical. They're not set up correctly. There's tax implications and etc. But I think that's why I personally like, we like the construct of a retirement account is because it has built-in disincentives to prevent children from liquidating the account for frivolous things, right? Like travel or buying sports cars or partying or whatever. So on a Roth and a 401k, there are penalties for withdrawing early. Not only do you pay taxes, the income taxes, but you pay an extra 10% excise penalty, right? So there's a built-in incentive to not mess up that account, just to leave it as it is. Same thing with the college one, college 5 to 9. There's a disincentive and a penalty. So we like that. On top of that, we are also building in sort of multi-sig kind of controls that require approval from multiple people that the parents designate. Could be the parents, it could be a guardian, it could be someone else, to allow children to access the funds in the account in case of emergencies, right? I think you do need an emergency release valve. Like if there's a real emergency and you need to access the funds, like, okay, maybe there's a little bit you can access, but it should require more than the child's approval. In terms of investing risk, it's, I think you can deal with it by just sort of investing in indexes and ETFs rather than single individual stocks. And so Woo and Chill is generally a good way to go. S&P 500, NASDAQ, pick your index. I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah.
One more question, Ali, Stefanie, if you have time. Have you, in your discussions, have you have another point? Is it good to disclose or not disclose these accounts to kids? Like, for example, I'm not disclosing my entire wealth to my kids. I only disclose it if needed, when needed, right? That's what my parents did, right? And that's what everybody's. We do not know our parents' net worth to the cent, right? So is it beneficial to disclose this to kids now, or like later, or never, or because this is an account we understand better, and disclose it only when they understand, kind of a thing?
Yeah, it's funny. I was in another fireside chat with one of our lawyers, right? And he's like an IRS, ex-IRS guy. And his older kids, I think they're in their 30s now. And he's like, he said, I didn't disclose anything to my kids. I still haven't. And the kids are 30. Because he said, kids are stupid. Kids are dumb. They're going to do dumb things. And I personally sort of also subscribe to that. I'm not disclosing that to my kids until they're much older. And that's part of the reason I think we want to build in multi-sig controls on some of these accounts, is to prevent liquidation. Now, technically, the accounts you set up for your kids, they're going to take legal ownership of them when they turn 21 or 18 in some states. So they will be notified, right, by you or like the bank that's holding the account. But that's okay. I think as long as there's some controls where they can't liquidate it, it's okay. And I don't like talking about net worth to the kids, because I think it sets them up for failure and a false sense of security, and sort of makes them think it's like a silver spoon and they're going to be, fed as trust fund babies or whatever. I think those are real dangers. Harsh, there's also this really incredible statistic around generational, we're talking about generational wealth building, right? Where losing generational wealth is a big danger as well. So there's this incredible statistic by like the second generation. So if you leave money to your kids, and by the time they have kids, if they're just passing the money on, 70% of that money is gone. So there's real data around this, that in most cases, kids who are trust fund babies end up squandering most of the money.
There's Warren Buffett famously decided not to pass his wealth on to his kids. And so each of them, I think he has like several kids, and each of them is making their own way. I think one of them is a farmer, or was a farmer at one point. Like it's such an interesting family. Yeah.
You can pass it to the shareholders. I'm okay.
Do you have? Oh, now I have questions, Harsh. No, no. I mean, let's get on this topic of like the cost of raising kids. I think that there's a lot of families in really interesting situations right now. Parents who've recently been laid off a lot of millennials who are sort of stepping into new parenthood and figuring out like, oh gosh, I have to not just invest for myself and my retirement, but my kids now. And I don't have that kind of disposable income at the end of the year, right? Such that I'm putting all of this away, right? Especially in this kind of job market where, we are dealing with, instability basically. And so I'm kind of curious, like how you think about that prioritization of expenses during a time like this. It's very unpredictable.
Totally. And I put this quick slide together,
Oh, you
Steph,
did.
if I may.
I love it. Yeah, please.
These are the best estimates, current estimates of cost to raise a kid, annual cost in a high cost of living area like the Bay Area or in New York. Pre-college, you're looking at 175K a year in after-tax dollars, and with college, obviously, the number bumps up, and who knows what college is going to cost in 18 years. But it's kind of crazy, and we can talk about the breakpoints and like what families are doing to optimize. But some of the big breakpoints are: do you have a full-time nanny or not? Right, that's a significant step. And then, are you doing private school or not? Assuming your kids are pre-college. College is like a whole other ball game, but those are two breakpoints.
Oh. Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? This is crazy.
Tough.
And no wonder people are having less kids, right? Birth rates are declining and people are just like, what the hell?
Yeah, like most people, can you imagine making $275,000 a year, like excess income on top of whatever you're making? That's not that many people, right?
Yeah. I have friends who are making $2 million a year and they feel poor.
Oh,
With
I
two
believe
kids
it in the
and
Bay Area.
Yeah, mortgage or rent, it's gone. It's like gone.
It's all gone. It's all gone. And you still want to have some quality of life and travel. Oh my gosh, Monica, you're right. Like, never mind that there's a medical something that comes up. Oh, geez. I mean, I don't want to make this dire, but like, how can we look at this and think about this positively, right? Or like feel like we have some control over these costs? I suspect it comes back to some of your basic definitions that you showed before, but yeah, I mean, any positive takes on this slide, Ali?
How do you feel less poor? This is what we're doing. Let me just, and stories I've heard from friends are, a lot of people, especially when they have their second or third child, choose to move to like a lower cost area, where they grew up. They might have grandparents or other family. That's one option. You can have a part-time nanny, not a full-time nanny, or no nanny. Maybe one of the parents chooses not to work because you also want to give quality time to the children, not just hand them off to childcare from 9 to 6. Because that's it's a terrible experience for the kids growing up, I feel, in my opinion. And then private school, I think if you move to a really good school district, the public schools, you can supplement, right? So especially when you have more than one child, these benefits start to add up. So instead of paying $60K per child per year for private school, K-12, you can move to, in California, for example, Palo Alto, Cupertino, good school districts. SoCal, Orange County has Irvine, some other areas, good school districts. There are others in NorCal as well. So you pick a good school district, you move there, you can supplement, have your child do English, math, science classes, and that number drops significantly. Not zero, but like, you can eliminate most of it. So I think, you could do it, but still hard to do it at less than 50K a year in a high cost of living, even with all of these optimizations.
Yeah, I just did a quick search for best school districts in the country and public school districts, and the vast majority of them in the top 10 are in Illinois. Actually, that surprises me. I think when I was growing up, that was Connecticut. They were spending the most money per child and it was paying off. And now it looks like it's shifted to the suburbs of Chicago, and which is not necessarily a bad thing. And then, of course, we have our usual suspects around like Palo Alto and Mountain View, largely driven by tech companies. So it's kind of wild.
That's wild. Palo Alto did, I think it was niche ratings. They did rank Palo Alto #1 last year in the country for school districts with at least 7,000 students. So there's a lot of really small ones that rank highly. So you kind of have to look at like which one has like a high school, which one has how many students. But yeah, no, I think there's great school districts around the country. New England has a bunch of good ones. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, even Florida has some good districts. California certainly does.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, Marjan, you want to ask a question? Oh, you're muted in case. She may be having trouble getting her mic off. Yeah, that's okay. Let me move on for now while she's figuring out her internet connection.
Hi. Sorry.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Yes. Sorry, my appearance. Like I'm having lunch. It was just lunchtime.
Totally fine. I know. Go ahead.
And I don't normally join from my phone. That's why the whole setup. So I want to tie all of this. Like I was trying to ask about the financial education for kids. I live in. I'll expose myself, I guess. I live in a like famous school district, Scarsdale. It's in New York. We also sometimes top the list from certain like. Thank you. So the thing that they did that I liked, that I was also curious to hear here is in my kids' school, I have two daughters, 14 and 16. They kept getting financial education, especially even fourth grade, they started with some work. For example, like eighth grade in social sciences, they did simulate the stock market. They all invested in stocks. And one day my younger one showed up at home, like really sad, said, the stock market crashed. I lost all my $1 million. Like, this is unfair. So she was like sad for the evening, seriously, because she worked on them for 2 weeks. Like she was doing well. So I was going to ask about it. Like, I wasn't sure if it was relevant, but we're trying to teach them finances. It's not like, for example, the discussion around like not telling them our worth. In fact, they do. Like, we don't have much worth, but we have the house, for example. They know that it is something. So it is not like we can really hide from them because they know the houses you own, kind of thing. But I benefited a lot from schools teaching them about the dollar values, how you can lose wealth. Same with my older one. She had to learn how to use a credit card and like compound interest. Their seventh grade teacher made them loan and try to live on the loan for like a few weeks. And every day they have to show up and do some expenses, pay rent, buy groceries, and also pay some loan that keeps increasing. So that, I think, helped a little bit. I was going to ask if you know more about like teaching them about the value of the money, and they can like lose them and they have to save.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's an important topic, and maybe the value of investing early for your kids, the educational value might be actually more valuable for them than the money they get out of these accounts, right? So I think going on this exercise, there is a really powerful educational component that's underrated and not talked about. And I wish more schools did that. But there's a bunch of services you can use. I think Greenlight is one of them. Some of the banks, neobanks also let you issue debit cards to your kids and track their spending. You can also open up a custodial brokerage account at pretty much any brokerage or bank for your child, put a little bit of money in, let them buy a stock, and go through the highs and the devastating lows, right? And learn emotionally of what that journey looks like. And most people who invest learn the hard way, that diversify, buy the market, don't YOLO too much into like individual stocks or options or derivatives. Maybe for fun, just a little bit of play money, but certainly not the bulk of your savings or retirement. So I think the pay off debt early, live debt free, etc. Those are really powerful.
Thank you.
Gee, go for it.
Hi, Steph. Thank you, Steph and Ali. And sorry I'm camera off. I am multitasking at the moment. So it's for everyone's sake. I promise you that I'm camera off. But thank you. This is amazing. So and very timely for me. So I think maybe a lot of people in this room can relate. It's just like first generation. You kind of, as a first generation American, kind of like learn this later on in your life on behalf of your parents. Like my sisters and I just recently bought a house for my parents, and even right now I'm helping my parents invest their retirement income. And so it's been very useful for me as a finance professional to really get up to speed on this. And but yeah, so I'm actually on this call. I don't have any children, but it's just helpful to know, especially for my sisters who have children. So these insights have been really helpful. But I'm curious to know, is it possible for, let's say, adults? So I guess in my case, my parents are like, would people of retirement age to set up a Roth IRA for their adult children and have their adult children pay into it tax-free? Or does this have to be set up at the time that the children were under the age of 18?
Oh, this is interesting.
They can do it anytime. They can do it anytime. Even if the children are grown up, say in their 20s or 30s, it's still beneficial to set up a Roth or a 401k or something like that, because they'll still get the advantages of compounding and tax benefits and tax free, but obviously it's a lot less, right? So the curve is exponential logarithmic, and so the sooner you start, like the bigger the number at the end, just through annual compounding. But it's still certainly beneficial. It's better than not doing it. There is added complexity that someone has to manage, right? But every time you open a new account or new bank, there is some complexity that goes into managing it. But that's it's a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Like some of the complexities, for example, is that the person has to have earned income to start. And so there's sort of this, in order to start a Roth IRA, how do I think of is my kid an employee? Like, what's that? Like, how does that work, Ali? Like, talk me through some of those nuts and bolts. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish the laws were different in the country where you could set up, a Roth for kids without any income requirements and just put money into them. And, it's a good thing for America, for the world, right? If parents save for their kids, like the day they're born, right? But, we have to work with the laws as they are. And the requirement for the Roth, it's the most powerful account type by far. The requirement is that you have to have earned income. What is earned income? Earned income is that the account holder, has to have wages or salary or contracting 1099 income, basically either a W-2 or a 1099 from work that they've done. It cannot be passive investment income. It can't be passive dividend income. It can't be passive rental income, right, from a property that is in the kid's name. And so the way we hack it is we let parents employ their kids, and there are two ways to do it. The more common way that's talked about on YouTube. So if you just go on YouTube, Roth IRA for kids, there are hundreds of people talking about this, CPAs, lawyers, influencers. And the more common way that they talk about is you need to have a business or an LLC. But that's a pretty high bar. 9 out of 10 people don't have a business or an LLC. They just have a W-2. They're working somewhere and they get a W-2. The less common way that is actually, easier and cheaper because you don't need a business or an LLC is just to hire the kids in your household. Make them do like household work, kind of like chores. Stuff that you would normally hire a third party to do. That's sort of the test. So if you're hiring a maid or a cleaner, for example, come in once every couple of weeks, clean up the house, right? Do some vacuuming, take out the trash, do some dusting, mop the floors. As long as your child is old enough and capable of doing that, you can hire them and you can pay them minimum wage or a little bit above minimum wage. And that's why we built Mora. It's like I was looking at like, how do I hack this? And ChatGPT was like, okay, well, you should do a Roth IRA, keep these 15 pieces of documentation to be compliant, and then you're good. And we looked into it. We went down the rabbit hole. That's how this idea came about, this ChatGPT. We went down the rabbit hole, talked to a bunch of lawyers and accountants and CPAs and had them sign off on it. Those are the two ways you can hire your kids. So you do have to hire them to generate earned income. The child has to earn it, and then that becomes eligible to go into a Roth.
I love how you make it sound so easy. I guess that's the point of Mora, right? Is to make it easy. So
we're trying.
Yeah.
So we do like employment contracts, pay stubs, timesheets, W-2s, W-4s, reporting to the IRS and filing, getting a household EIN for you from the IRS. So we do all of that. So you just click a few buttons and you say, Mora, deal with this BS. And we go deal with this BS. And you just make sure, your kid does some work and you set a wage for them. And that's it. Everything is automated.
That's amazing. How young and how old do they have to be in order for me to employ them or pay them?
Yeah. So
work?
depending on the approach. So for the household approach, generally, we like to say, the kids should be 5 or older, right?
Okay.
So that they can start doing something useful in the house, and it's reasonable to pay them a wage, washing the car, gardening, cleaning, taking out the trash, whatever it is. If you have a business, if you're in the lucky position of having a business or an LLC that isn't just set up to hire your kids, because that's a no-no. Something's going on. There's some other business transactions in the LLC, right? So it's a real business, bona fide business, and you can hire your kid. Most people, the way they've sort of figured out a route is you can hire even a newborn baby to be a model in a business, right? So the category of modeling is pretty broad, which means you can use the child's picture or image in social media marketing on your website or a brochure, and you can pay them something for it, right? Nothing egregious, but something that would be a market rate for that kind of work. You could pay them for it. So a lot of parents do this with newborns, but again, not everyone has a business.
So many parents are also having their kids be influencers. Like there's, during the pandemic, I stumbled across a parent that was using their young child I don't remember, it was like gymnastics or some kind of early like cheerleading thing. And this is when Cheer was coming on Netflix and it was getting really popular. And I was like, this is wild. And this guy was stunting with his like 3-year-old. Yeah. And the kid, at the age of 2 was already had like incredible balance and things like that. And so people were just following, and I'm sure they were getting paid gigs. I mean, that counts, right?
Mm-hmm. That totally counts.
So it doesn't need to be like an official like Gap baby model. Not to Davidson, who used to work at Gap a long time ago. Just they can.
Yeah, but that's right. I mean, by modeling, we don't mean you have to be like a baby walking down the runway, It can just be using a picture of the baby for a business use case. That's all you need. So if you have a business, say a YouTube channel or a website selling, e-commerce, something, or an events business, or like you're doing photography, right? Tons and tons of like businesses or side gigs that people do, where you can use a picture of your family, you can use a picture of the kids for social media marketing, or in a brochure or somewhere else in the product. That qualifies.
Well, all
And
the
then,
to-be parents take note.
yeah, and there's also, other ways kids make money, like when they become teenagers, right? They can go work at McDonald's or, do summer jobs, mow the neighbor's lawn. But those are less tax efficient ways to pay your kids or for them to make money. So they can still take that income, put it into a Roth, but most cases those wages are taxed. Either if it's W-2 from like a McDonald's, they're going to get taxed at source, withheld, or if it's a 1099, you have to pay self-employment taxes. So there is a tax drag, doing it that way. But the most efficient way is to either for parents to hire their kids in the home or a business that they fully own. There are special exclusions in the IRS tax code where if parents employ their kids through either of those two mechanisms, right, household or business that they fully own, not only is there no income tax as long as you don't pay your kid over the standard deduction, but there are no Medicare, Social Security, FICA, FUTA, unemployment taxes. So 100% of the income flows through to the child tax-free, and then the child can take that money, put it into the Roth.
Oh, crazy. So there's also incentive for creating a family business where you employ your family, basically.
Yeah.
It has to be direct descendants. Like I couldn't employ my niece or nephew, or for the aunties
Sure.
in the room.
Yes.
BNI, yeah.
You don't get the tax breaks if you do that for your niece or nephew, but
Okay.
you can contribute to a niece or nephew's college 529 account, tax-free.
Okay. We have 2 minutes left. I want to see if there are any final questions for Ali before we start to close up here. Okay. All right. I feel like we're good to go. I guess I do have one last question, which is on the topic of budgeting. Do your kids play video games? And if yes, what is their Roblox budget or their or what is your Ninjago budget?
We so far have managed to have a no video game policy in the
Oh,
house.
wow.
So try to keep the kids away from video games as long as I can. But some of my older one, his friends are starting to get, they maybe have a console at home, or there's Minecraft or Roblox happening with an older sibling at home. So it's starting to happen. We're going to try and keep this out of the house as long as possible. But having said that, there is unfortunately no budget, which means there is an unlimited budget for Ninjago and books and toys. So there is a lot of spending happening there, So I probably do need to budget there for Lego and but books I'm okay with. They can buy unlimited books.
I love how parents are just like, oh yeah, Legos are educational, but then their kids. I guess it could be, but they're like $150 for like a really nice set. It can be really pricey. Okay.
I bet if I was to go into my account and search Lego and actually tally up, it's probably $1,500 a year. It's probably what I've spent in the last 12 months. Easy.
Oh man, I know it's so easy to be like, but I'm teaching my child how to be creative and their dexterity and all of these things. Ali, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I will send a follow-up email to everyone with the recording and some of the key takeaways, but geez Louise, good luck to all the parents on the call, right? Like, let's get on it. Let's start that process of earning for our kids.
Thanks so much, Stephanie, and thanks to the Zugler community. You guys are awesome.